What is up, everyone? Jeremy here. In this video, we are going to have ourselves some fun recording some drums and checking out 5 different overhead miking techniques. Now, this is something I've been wanting to try for a while now that I've got my drums set up, I've got all my equipment ready to go, and I've got all the mics and everything I needed to be able to start recording drums here in the studio. So I've got all that. Now we're going to check out these overhead techniques, and we're going to start with one called spaced pair. And this is exactly what it sounds like. A pair of microphones spaced apart over the kit. This is ideal for getting a nice wide stereo image, with the primary goal of this being to capture the snare and kick as close to the center of the image as possible. So as you can see, I've got one mic here kind of over these cymbals and the hi-hat over on this side, even capturing a little bit of the floor tom over there. And I've got this one over here, kind of pointing at this group of cymbals in the tom, and they're almost perfectly even apart over the snare and the kick, which are very close anyways. So let's go ahead, fire up the DAW, hit record, and see what this one sounds like. All right, so the next overhead miking technique we are going to check out is called the XY pattern. And this is where you basically take the 2 mics and you're putting them in kind of like a V shape. And I've got that set up here right now. And so what you're doing is taking one and having it direct towards, if I'm sitting behind the kit looking forward towards the left side of the kit, and the other one angled down looking at kind of the right side of the kit. And again, the primary goal here is to keep kick snare as much to the center of the image as possible, and then let it capture the rest of those kind of the stuff around the kit, right? The cymbals, the toms, and everything else, trying to get that stereo image. So that's what I've got set up here, and it may look like it's just a little off to the center of the snare, but that is because I'm trying to kind of get it in this plane here from this angle, just off to the right looking this way, because the kick is here and the snare is there, and I want to try and capture as much of both of those in the center of the image as I can. So that's what I'm trying to go for here. Now let's go ahead and fire up the DAW, hit record, and see what this one sounds like. All right, and so on to number 3, and this one is called the over-the-shoulder technique. So imagine I'm the drummer, I'm sitting at my kit, and the mics are gonna actually be behind me, angled down towards, kind of like right towards that center, the center of the kit, right? So the kick and the snare primarily, over my shoulders looking in. So they're gonna be capturing a good wide image, but again, focusing the center towards the kick and the snare. And I've got those set up here now. So as you can see, they're actually a good ways back. Come back here, maybe you can see. So I'm all the way against the wall now, and these are maybe about 1.5 feet or so off the wall. Looking again, this one angled towards the snare, and the kick and the snare, keeping that center image, and then they're gonna capture a good wide image. So let's go ahead, fire up the DAW, hit record, and see what this one sounds like. All right, so on to number 4. And so for this overhead miking technique, this is just one that I wanted to try out and see what it sounded like. So this may be a technique somebody's already tried. I'm sure it is. There's probably millions of YouTube videos showing this already exists, but I didn't search for it. As I was going through the process of recording this video and moving mics around, I figured, let's go ahead and try this out. So at the very beginning of the video, I said there was gonna be 5 techniques. There's actually 6 now because I decided to throw this one in as I was making the video. So we're gonna give it a shot. And I'm just calling this a horizontal spaced pair. So with the spaced pair, the very first one that we did, those were just spaced evenly over the kit, looking down, right, at each side of the kit. Well, this one is taking the mics, making them horizontal, and moving them kind of back to where they were for the previous one, the over the shoulder. So bringing it down more, having them almost level, like in between, like about hi-hat height. Right there, you can see the mic back here. It's almost the same height as the hi-hat. So in between kind of like the snare and the cymbals, right? So right in that middle space, looking forward. So it's gonna catch the shells, it's gonna catch the cymbals. I just wanna see what it sounded like. So let's go ahead, fire up the DAW, hit record, and see what this one sounds like. All right, and so on to technique number 5. And for this one, this is just yet again one that I wanted to experiment with. It's literally the spaced pair, but in reverse. So instead of having the overhead mics above on each side, they are upside down, looking up, down low, almost kind of like the height, the top of the kick drum. And for this, to show you exactly where they are, I've got my phone camera here, and I'm gonna walk over and show you. We'll transition here to where I can show you where these are. And so here is the microphone, and you can see that one over here. Again, looking up, so it's about the height, maybe about the height of the snare drum. And so then that one is there. And then we've got this one over here, again, looking up. So this might sound like total garbage, but the thing I was curious about is, do I get the same sort of attack on the cymbals? And what sort of low end am I gonna pick up? Because these are down closer to the shells now, instead of having the cymbals essentially blocking all the shells. So I was just curious what this one would sound like. So let's go ahead and fire up the DAW, hit record, and see what this one sounds like. All right, and so on to the 6th and final overhead technique we are gonna try in this video. And this one is called the Glyn Johns Method because it was created by famous English recording engineer and producer Glyn Johns, who has worked with literally the biggest names in rock and roll. We're talking the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, the Who, Eagles. I mean, the list just goes on forever. It's very impressive. He has created this and many other different techniques, but we're gonna give this one a try here. And so I'm gonna switch to the phone camera now because this one is interesting, and we'll walk through it here real quick. So just like any overhead technique, the snare and the kick, trying to keep that center, we have the mics in sort of an L shape here. So you see we have one above kind of looking right down at the snare, then we have one to the side looking at the snare. And they're about equal distance from each other. Again, to keep the snare and the kick in the center. And so this one is off by the floor tom, just above it, looking at the snare. And this one is above, looking down at the snare, creating that L shape. And so this is gonna create a very, very interesting stereo image where this one is obviously gonna capture, you know, a lot of the crash cymbals, and especially on this side, and then these shells over here. And then when we do a fill, coming over to here, this one is clearly gonna be right in the mic, so, and the ride as well. So that should create a very, very unique stereo image, and I'm very curious to see how this comes out. So again, let's go ahead, fire up our DAW, hit record, and give this one a listen. All right, so that is all 6 overhead miking techniques. And so what I need from you now is to drop down into those comments and share your thoughts on each of these. Which ones did you like? Which ones maybe did you not like? And what did you like about certain things? What did you dislike? Share all your thoughts. I'd love to hear it. And if there's any other sort of overhead miking techniques that I could try out in a future video, let me know that as well, and maybe we'll do that. So I had a lot of fun making this. I learned some new things along the way, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope maybe you learned some stuff as well. If you did, you found this fun, interesting, and helpful, do me a favor, hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content like this in the future. That also really helps out the channel. So with that, I just want to say thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.